Thanks. Now recording.
Okay, excellent. So I'd like to call to order the Thursday, May 22nd, 2021 MWPA Board Directors meeting. Welcome everyone. And Allison, will you please call the roll?
Bolinas Fire District.
Present.
City of Mill Valley.
Here.
City of San Rafael.
Here.
City of Larkspur.
Here.
County of Marin.
Here.
Inverness Fire District. Kentfield Fire District. Marinwood Community Services District. Muir Beach Community Services District. Novato Fire District.
Here.
Sleepy Hollow Fire District.
Here.
Southern Marin Fire District.
Here.
Stinson Beach Fire District.
Here.
Town of Corte Madera.
Here.
Town of Fairfax.
Here.
Town of Ross.
Here.
Town of San Anselmo.
Here, and I'm sorry, I'm having some video issues, so I'm not on video right now.
Okay.
Quorum is present with 95% of the membership.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Allison. At this time, I'll entertain any requests to adjust the order of the agenda. And I am seeing none. Let's move on to item 4, which is this time for public expression. The public's welcome to address the board at this time on matters not on the agenda and that are within the jurisdiction of the board. And public, please be advised that pursuant to government code, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. And I would ask that all please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when not reporting out. So Allison, do we have any public interest in making a comment at this time?
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there is no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to my item 5. This is the executive officer's report. Mark Brown, will you provide a report to us and an update on several items? Now, you've been very busy.
Good afternoon, President Goings, board members. Yeah, very busy. And Anne's first board meeting as a staff member. I know she was able to introduce herself at our last board meeting, but I just wanted to formally welcome her as a full-time staff member to the board and give you a brief picture of what her first week looked like. Today's day 4. On day 1, she worked into the evening hours to help build all the tables for our work plan. And then she was emailing me tables like at 7 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday and Wednesday. And so it's very safe to say that the work plan would not have gotten completed if she had not completed all the tables that are in the work plan. So already proving her worth when it comes to that. And then her experience and background in the meetings that she's already been participating with in this week has just been very important, and it fills a void of information and experience that I did not have. So I look very much forward to having that skill set moving forward with us. We have drafted a schedule of an onboarding schedule for the 2 of us to work through for her first 2 weeks. And so now that we have put the work plan together in a package, we can actually get to that schedule that I made. So the real quick on the fire season update, you guys I know have been paying attention to the wildfires that have been popping up throughout the state. You all saw the vegetation fire on the east side of San Rafael. Not an uncommon fire for us to get in San Rafael. However, I would say its size and the speed in which it grew to its size was probably a little bit out of the normal for San Rafael. And I'm going to ask you to kind of use your memories and when the fuel charts that I showed at our last meeting, the plummet of the fuels, you know, I've never seen the fuels drop as fast as I've seen the fuels drop. I've seen we are at historic lows. I've seen historic lows before, but the trend showed that we were going to be at a historic low. A month and a half ago, the trend didn't show that we would be at a historic low in May. And then the drop off was practically vertical. So we are at July fuel moisture levels in some areas. And like I said, historic low. And then even we're not just at July levels, we're at below critical levels. And typically we won't hit below critical levels until August for some of our fuels. I'm not going to take a lot of the thunder about the work plan away from Chief Tyler. He'll be giving you a verbal report on the work plan, but I do want to give a shout out to every member agency within the MWPA. I've said this countless times, and I truly mean it. The strength of the MWPA is in its member agencies and the quality staff that is within each of the member agencies. They submitted between the core, the local mitigation projects, and D-space projects, 111 proposals. And so that is not a small amount of work from the staff from each of the member agencies. And they were all well-designed proposals. And I think it's just going to have tremendous benefit for the MWPA. The proposals total just under $18 million worth of proposals.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we will be having our special meeting of the board May 27th. I really appreciate your flexibility. I understand not everyone will be able to attend, but in order for us to get that work plan put together properly and have the public review at the operations committee meeting, it was the only way that we were going to be able to get it done and still have it done by June 1st. So again, I appreciate everyone's flexibility. You may notice a small change in the format of the agenda as far as any items that technically don't require board approval, such as minutes of committees that the board members are not members of, therefore would not be approving. We no longer have those in the consent calendar. We have moved those down into the information items. So we won't be voting on things that really shouldn't have a board vote. The Citizens Oversight Committee is continuing to work on their policies and procedures that go in partnership with the bylaws. They almost got all the way through working out their first draft at their last meeting, and we anticipate that they'll be able to accomplish that task at their next meeting. Big step for the ecologically sound practices group. Their best management practices package that they have been working on so hard, and with so many partners, Bruce and myself involved almost all of the way through. Bruce much more than myself. So many members of the Marin County Fire Service provided feedback. They've got their package wrapped up. They will be presenting it to the entire ESP group tomorrow at 1. Unfortunate conflict, we had to move the operations committee to the same time. I wish we didn't have to do that, but again, for the timing purposes of the work plan, we had to do that. And just to give you an idea of the path forward after they finalize their recommendations for BMPs, is that Ann's going to be digging into it very closely. And then that's when the next step will be for Panorama and our environmental law partners to be taking a look at it, making sure it's all in alignment with the CEQA laws. We will also be having Megan taking a look at it so that we make sure that all the practices and recommendations are in alignment with our JPA language. And then it'll go through advisory technical committee, because those are the people that will actually have to implement a lot of the BMPs in there and make sure that it's digestible for them or isn't counter to any best fire prevention practices. Then up to operations for that same lens at it. And then for the final step will be for the board approval, and the lens that we'll be asking you guys to look at it for is as policymakers. Does this make good policy? Is it in alignment with our JPA language and our strategies? Community forums. We've had 3 out of our 5 community forums so far. I've been able to pop in on all 3 so far. So far they have been outstanding, and what I've really appreciated about them, and I think was a great move, was having the local agency fire professionals be part of that meeting and having the citizens to have access directly to their fire personnel that are implementing these practices. Novato Fires was last night, and there was Chief Tyler was even in the background. He wasn't on camera, but he was on the background asking questions during the Q&A. Yvette was phenomenal. When Senator Fells was great, Quinn just she rocked it. And Jordan Reister's experience just showed when he did West Marin. So I really look forward to seeing Central Marines the first week of June, and I believe Southern Marines is a week from 6 days from now, Wednesday of next week. Ann and I have been busy with Grizzly Corps interviews of our fellows. We've interviewed 2 of them, and we have 5 more interviews coming up. Again, the fellows will fill 2 different positions. Very impressed with resumes and very impressed with the 2 interviews that we've had so far. And then I think I mentioned to the board the equity initiative that Chief Weber is pioneering with the county, rest of the county of Marin. They have a name for it: the Fire Inclusion, Recruitment, and Education. We have a weekly meeting now to make sure that we are put together an excellent plan. And the goal is to implement this plan in January of 22. Based on a recommendation from Director McEntee, we applied for the speak at the League of California Cities at their conference in September. And we just got confirmation back that they have accepted our application. And we will be doing a panel discussion during the conference. And Director McEntee will be the moderator for that panel. I'll be one of the panelists. And my goal is to have a fire chief and a city manager at the panel as well. That way we get a broad representation of our team here in Marin. And speaking of teams, OneTAM, we are really starting to get well involved with OneTAM, and in 3 different areas, a GIS platform that they are putting together to track all vegetation management projects on public lands, all public agencies. The intent is to use this mapping solution to display their VMP projects. And this helps for total transparency to the public. It also helps with our CEQA process. That we'll use that as our map for the CEQA process. And we have committed to using that with the rest of the land management agencies. Another thing that was identified in a meeting I had with them is that so many different agencies have the best intentions. We all want to do good. But if we're not sharing information, perhaps we are going after the same grant monies, or perhaps, and could be potentially competing against each other for those grant monies. Or maybe the consensus was if we all got together and shared our information and pooled our resources and actually worked together for these grant opportunities or projects, the level of partnership across the county and our effectiveness will be much better. And even though we're the new guys on the block, I did offer to be that facilitator for the MWPA, to be that facilitator of bringing everybody together. And I felt that that was appropriate for us to do because as the grand jury pointed out, as the lessons learned, there's no one agency charged with the veg management for fire prevention. And I felt like since that was our charge, it would be appropriate for us to be that convener. And then wanted to give a shout out to Marin Municipal Water and how responsive they were to a recent issue. Director Kurtz found a plant list that they had been recommending for drought tolerant plants. And unfortunately, it listed some of the plants that, I mean, for the most part, we aren't telling people they're a no-go plant, but there are a few plants that we really don't want people to plant. And but prior to reaching out to Marin Water, they'd already pulled that list down. And but when I was in contact with them yesterday, they promised to keep us well involved. And if they do put that list back on, we'll be able to get a first peek at it to make sure that we don't have any plants on it that would just make the fire threat worse. And so Director Kurtz, thank you for pointing that out. And my last item is, it doesn't seem like it's time for this, but it is. And that is the election of the president and the vice president for the June meeting. So I just wanted to plant that seed and get you guys prepared for that process. With that, I'll take any questions.
Excellent report. Let's see, Catherine Hilliard, I see you had your hand up, and Sashi. Catherine, you're muted. There we go.
So I just wanted to ask about, can outsiders come to the League of California conference to see your panel?
I can't
mean-
see why not.
I mean, mostly I know that it has to be elected officials from cities that attend, but I think that you can register as a citizen and come. I'm not sure, but I would really like to do that.
I'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see, was it Sashi? Hi, Sashi.
Hi, Mark. That was such a packed report. I had just a couple of questions. One, 111 proposals sounds huge. Did any of the member agencies reach out to you as they were preparing them for help, or was the operations committee able to help with that? Were you guys able to do any, assistance on the way in?
Yes, for all of those questions. And I'll add the advisory technical committee as well.
Great.
And rather than really focusing on the help that MWPA may have provided, I think it's better to describe it as the help as each member agency gave each other.
Nice.
As they
That's
worked
great.
through it.
That's great to hear. Fantastic. I am also really happy to hear about your getting so involved in conversation with both One TAM and MMWD. I can just think that it's great that we've gotten to the point that we can, start through you, Mark, being more of a leader among the other land managers and other agencies that are going to be involved in vegetation management and fire prevention, but aren't a fire agency per se, and therefore aren't involved in our group. So wanted to just also note how really critical that is, and it's great that you're able to do that. And also the fact that Anne's here, I think, is freeing you up to be able to do these things. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Sashi. Any other questions from directors? Mark, I just have a comment about the MMWD plant list and the ESP, the Environmental Sustainable Practices. There is reference to some suggested plantings, and so suggest that you try to tie the knot on both of those, get them to talk to each other. It's all incoming, but let's make sure that we're consistent to the extent that we can be.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. No other comments. Really great, Mark. There's so much work going on and everybody's been really busy. Let's take this out to the public for comment. Public, any comments on the executive officer's report?
Larry Minikes.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, Bruce. Just a real quick shout out to what Mark said about the ESP process, and just to reconfirm or reinforce that Bruce in particular, Mark has been there when he can, but Bruce in particular has been there for all our meetings, and this has been a very much a collaborative process that we're working on. So just so you understand, it's completely collaborative. We're not like a satellite operating by ourselves, and that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Larry, and thanks for all of the hard work. You've been there at every meeting also. Any other public comments, please, on the executive officer's report?
There's no further public comment.
Okay, great. Well, let's bring back the board. Any further discussion from the board? And I am seeing none. So Mark, wonderful work. Let's move on to item number 6. This is the consent calendar. This is an opportunity for the opportunity for public comment on the consent calendar will occur prior to the board's discussion of the consent calendar. Board may approve the entire calendar in one action. As an alternate, items on the calendar may be removed by any board member or staff for separate discussion. So let's see. Public comment. Any public comment on the consent calendar, please?
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there is no public comment.
Great. Board members, any of you wish to pull an item? Barbara.
I don't wish to pull anything. I just wanted to mention that I had submitted a few comments on the communication strategy. I believe Mark said that at least one of those would be adopted. And then there was the staff report for item C wasn't totally clear to me, and it was probably me, but I had asked the question if these grants, if we're successful in getting them, would be applicable to disabled and AFN people. And if it's just for high-risk areas, then at least my understanding of what Mark got back to me is it's low income, AFN, and it can be in all areas, not just high-risk areas for low income and AFN. Is that correct, Mark?
That is correct. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you. And I think there was just one thing on the communication strategy that you agreed to, which was we put in actually what our budgeted amount is rather than just having a percentage. I think that's more clear to people what kind of money we're spending. And I had just submitted a little typo on the minutes, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks for your thorough review and contributions there. Any other board members? Okay, so I see nothing's been pulled. Issues seem to have been resolved and integrated. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar, please.
It's Redoni. I'll move the consent.
Dennis, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rachel, Dennis, and Rachel, second. Thank you.
Venus Fire District.
Here we go. Thank you, Allison. I was looking for your name.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear Bolinas Fire District.
Aye.
Thank you. City of Mill Valley.
Aye.
City of San Rafael.
Aye.
City of Larkspur.
Aye.
County of Marin.
Aye.
Kentfield Fire District.
Aye.
Muir Beach Community Services District.
Aye.
Novato Fire District.
Aye.
Sleepy Hollow Fire District.
Aye.
Southern Marin Fire District.
Aye.
Stinson Beach Fire District.
Aye.
Town of Corte Madera.
Aye.
Town of Fairfax.
Aye.
Town of Ross.
Aye.
Town of San Anselmo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 100%.
Thanks so much, Allison. Thank you, board. Let's move on to staff reports. Item number 7. There's no action required on this item. We'll start with item A, which is the finance staff report. Let's see. Alyssa Schiffman, I believe you're with us. Yes, I see you there. Alyssa's going to provide us with a report.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's see, you caught me by surprise there. I was just listening. I don't have my report open.
Well, take a deep breath. It's okay.
Okay.
Alyssa, are you going to need a screen share? Is that, or just a discussion?
No, just a discussion.
Okay. Take your time.
I have it open. So I am working on some changes to the report, but those aren't in effect yet. So for the purposes of this month's report, we're 86% through the fiscal year, and expenditures to date total 80% of budgeted. So we're a little under budget. I don't see any red flags, no pun intended. And we anticipate finishing the year under budget. We've made the agency disbursements up to 95%. We're going to pay out the remaining 5% in June. And then we're going to work on getting the agency's reports and compiling them. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks for a very brief report and the status of our expenditures and projections. Board members, do we have any questions from the board on the report? And I see none. Let's take this out to the public for comment, please. Alyssa? Allison, thank you, and Allison.
I'm looking for any raised hands from our audience members, and there's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Back to the board. Any discussion? And I am seeing none. So thank you. Thanks, Alyssa. Let's move on to committee reports, item 8. So we're going to receive reports now from operations, the advisory technical committee, and Fire Safe Marin. So operations, I see Chief Tyler's joined us. Welcome, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Goings and directors.
So I'm happy to report that the ATC, the Ops Ad Hoc Work Plan, and the Ad Hoc Finance Committees have completed their work and have created a draft 2021-2022 work plan.
Wow.
It is, and all the associated costs. There are approximately 111 programs and projects that were submitted across the core, local funds, and DSpace sections. The total costs are approximately $18.5 million. We are going to take this, the updated plan right now is on the MWPA website under the Operations Committee meeting, if anyone would like to take a look at that, along with the agenda and a staff report that was put together by Executive Director Brown. We will be presenting this work plan tomorrow to the Operations Committee for their consideration. We organized the work plan in a very similar fashion to last year's plan. There's an executive summary. There's what we do, how we do it, how it's funded. And it's about 1,000 pages this year. And so that's a considerable increase, most of that due to the fact that we changed the form that we used for the submittal of each project. I want you to know that the process included working directly with the ATC and the different agency members directly, going back and forth, having conversations with them. The collaboration that they had putting that together was outstanding. Then we met as an ad hoc committee. We also asked Executive Director Brown to join us, Sabrina Teller from the environmental law firm that advises MWPA. We took a look at the plans initially at a high level, focusing on descriptions and CEQA information. We came up with a series of recommendations for consistent language across descriptions and CEQA for similar category projects. We sent all of that back down to the ATC. In a very short period of time, they reworked it. It came back up. Simultaneously, after having conversations with the ad hoc groups about which sorts of plans and programs would be shared, that is, there's a mutual benefit across all that we thought we would want to recommend. Those projects have a certain funded cost to them. We ended up taking that amount off the top. The Finance Committee reworked that, came back and said, okay, this is how much money each area has to spend now. We went back into our plans, adjusted the amounts, reprioritized some of the projects, and came back up for a final review. And then I'm happy to say that we think we've landed on a work plan that meets the vision, the mission, the goals of this organization, that satisfies the concerns of the different individual member agencies. And so we're very happy with this at this time. So it still has a ways to go. We are obviously going to talk in the Ops Committee tomorrow. We will continue to get public input on the plan itself. We hope to then be able to bring a recommendation to your full board on the 27th for final action and authorization. And so with that, I will be available for whatever questions you might have.
Thank you, Chief Tyler, for a phenomenal amount of work. And I know that in the past we've gone through all the committee reports, but let's given the nature of this milestone here, the amount and the magnitude of the work, I'd like to go ahead and take questions from the board item by item. So questions, please. Julie, yes, please.
Hi, Chief Tyler. I was wondering if you would recommend that board members, if they can, try to attend your Ops Committee meeting tomorrow before the board meeting, or if that would be redundant to the board meeting next week.
You certainly are welcome to. That way you can be, exposed to the conversations. You'll hear the, public comment. If that helps inform your decision, with whatever recommendation comes forward. It's a public meeting, fully agendized, and we want, as much participation as possible. But it's not required.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Let's see, Sashi, please. Question, comment?
Just for those of you who are looking for that draft plan that Chief Tyler just mentioned, if you go to on the meetings page under Operations Committee, you click on the agenda, and then in the body of the agenda for the item, it says work plan. If you click on that, that's where you get to the draft work plan. I was a little stymied until Mark helped me out there. So just wanted to share that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Chief Tyler. This is an immense amount of work.
Thank you, Director McEntee. You're right. The wayfinding to get to that can sometimes be tricky, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other directors? I have a question, Bill, and maybe Mark, and maybe this is for Megan, but I understood that there was a decision regarding the approval process and those projects which are subject to CEQA. There's a process here that has been developed to advance pre-approval for the CEQA analysis and some funding associated with that, and then it'll cycle back once there's compliance. Mark, is this the time to talk about that or not? Is there a time for us to talk about this later, please?
I was going to give the full brief during the meeting on the 27th, if you like, but I can give the abridged version today, if you like.
Yeah, maybe a Cliff Notes version. I think the public will be interested, as well as other board members if they're not aware.
So if the board were to approve these as projects, then that means that we were completed with our CEQA analysis, and we would not be able to go back and update that CEQA analysis. And our proposal forms do not have what is necessary to properly document our CEQA analysis. So the first step is approval as an intended project, with 10% of the project funds being set aside for scoping and compliance. After scoping and compliance is completed, then it will come back to the full board for approval as a project.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I just want to be clear that we're taking this methodically, and we're taking the CEQA compliance very serious. And this is not a project approval. This is a affirmation of our commitment to CEQA compliance, which has been one of our mantras. So anyway, thank you. Thanks for the CEQA Cliff Notes version, Mark. Let's see. Wonderful. So I guess we should go out to the public on this now. And public, any comments?
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there's no public comment.
Wonderful. So any final thoughts before we move on to Ruben and the ATC?
I would just like to thank everyone that contributed their time, energy, in putting this together. I mean, it was really an incredible effort of collaboration with the fire agencies, the cities and towns, the other stakeholders. I thank them for all their work.
And Bill, your dedication, your work, your focus, and it's just beyond belief. So personally, thank you. I think this board thanks you too. And I want to say that having sat through the Nevada Fire Protection District special meeting earlier this week to look at the projects that are coming forth, I am really thrilled at the quality, the strategic nature of them, that this is core MWPA wildfire prevention work that's going to make a difference. So I think we can all agree, and hopefully you all feel that about your members' suite of projects. So just really thrilled with what we're doing here. So thanks. Let's move on to Ruben, please, Advisory Technical Committee. Hi, welcome, Ruben.
Good afternoon, President Goins and members of the board. Thank you for having me this afternoon. Just kind of wanted to update on, or just add on to what Mark Brown and Chief Tyler added. All the member agencies contributed to this plan coming in, and it takes months and months of work and planning to put this together. All of your member agencies, just to remember, also have full-time roles and responsibilities within their own fire agencies and or municipalities. So this is above and beyond what their jobs are intended to. So I was surprised when Mark mentioned that there was 111 proposals, which definitely is a feat to be proud of as an MWPA, as member agencies. And I just wanted to give a little bit of thank you to the members with the ATC who spent hours and hours and hours, not only pre-planning, but finding areas of concern, putting the proposals together, collaborating with the operations committee, with Mark Brown and MWPA, and all the local stakeholders and open space districts, private landowners, where a lot of these projects are going to take place. So if you don't mind, I'd like to go down the list here. Starting with Novato, I'd like to thank Lynn Osgood, their deputy fire marshal, and her team for putting together her plan, not only for Novato's district, but did a lot of the heavy lifting for creating the forms. Moving down to San Rafael and Marinwood is Quinn Gardner and her team. Down in the Southern Marin area, we have Tom Welch within Mill Valley, Fred Hilliard, Jesse Pagoni, Marshall Now, and McKenna Romero with the Southern Marin Fire Protection District with all of their work. And also David Taylor with Muir Beach Community Services District and their agency trying to put together work plans and collaborating together where we can hit common areas of concern. Within the Central Zone, Central Marin's Battalion Chief Todd Lando, Kentfield's Deputy Fire Marshal Larry Passero. Within the Ross Valley, which includes 4 member agencies, is Rob Bastionon and his team. And one of those member agencies, it's Rich Shortall, who's here as well, who also put in a proposal for Fire Safe Marin. So thank you to him for that. And then in West Marin is Steve Marcotte with Bolinas, Jesse Perry in Stinson Beach, and representing all of the volunteer fire agencies and communities out in West Marin, which also areas of the county which incorporate every portion of all of our municipalities and jurisdictions, is Jordan Reeser and his prevention team out there. So without these members, in which are all members of your agencies, the work plans that were presented to the operations committee and then brought forward to the MWPA would not have happened. These are the people who did the heavy lifting. Without them, the ATC wouldn't be successful. So a big thank you to all of them. And thank you for all of your support as MWPA members. With that, that'll be the end of my report, and I'm open for any questions if you have any.
No, Ruben, thank you. And it's so critically important that we, recognize the teamwork here and all the contributions. So thanks, Ruben. Board members, any questions about the ATC? Julie, please. Yes.
I just have a more general question. It strikes me that this is a huge amount of work from so many people, and I wondered if there's a plan after the board approves the operations committee work plan to get this word out to the public.
The word will be out through our social media sites. We'll be also utilizing MWPA through their social media sites, through all of our municipalities. I can speak for at least within Central Marin. We keep our work plans within our homepage of our website that shows where work is being done, and whether it's Measure C related work or other vegetation management work. So we're going to do everything we possibly can to get the word out. And then you'll also be seeing MWPA logos on vehicles that are driving through the neighborhoods doing your defensible space inspections. So our goal is to definitely promote as much as we possibly can this organization and all the good work that's going to be coming out of it.
And we are going to be looking at community forums after the approval of the, or after the start of the new fiscal year, similar to what we're doing now. So each of the geographical areas can get up close and personal update for their region.
Great, thank you.
Really great question, Julie. Thanks, Ruben and Mark. Other directors, hi, Rachel. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. And thank you all for all the work that went into building this plan. It's huge. I do have a question. So this is the second year of building the plan, and I'm wondering, does it feel more intensive or less intensive after doing it the first year? And looking ahead to year 3, are there things of your, because it is so much person time and effort, I'm wondering if there is a way to streamline it, or if you're thinking about that already going forward.
Yeah, I think it'll be streamlined. I know everyone uses the analogy as we're building the plane as we're flying it, but we kind of really are. We're building this organization as we're doing work.
Right.
Year one was more of your local funding and defensible space funding. So there was a lot of work that went into that. This year, we then augmented it with providing core funding, which then opened up a lot more opportunities in areas that we could then address. That would then be able to reduce a lot of the hazards that are more region-wide as opposed to just more locally focused. And then year three, I'm assuming, or I'm hoping that now that we've gone through this process completely with core, local, and DSpace funding, that it just gets easier and easier and easier.
Great.
And
Thank
if
you.
I
I
could-
appreciate that.
If I can add on, it was, I mean, I would estimate it was twice the work this year than it was last year because of the addition of the core projects that we did not have last year. And absolutely, there are so many lessons learned that I've documented and ways that we're going to streamline the process. And I won't get into the weeds, but yes, it has to improve than what we had last year. We can't do this to the staff of our member agencies year in and year out.
Thanks, Mark. Other directors? Catherine.
I want to thank you very much for the advisory technical committee, getting the people who are actually doing the work now in their own areas together. And then that is a huge wealth of knowledge, and one size doesn't necessarily fit all. They know their own areas best. So by working together, we get the best product. And I think their advice, it's worth doing that. Obviously, you know that. So thank you for calling them out. I really appreciate that for Southern Marin. They really are anxious to do the right things and have done. And I'm sure you all feel that about your own agencies. So thank you so much. That's what I wanted to say.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You've got a great team down there.
Okay, other directors, please. Seeing none, let's move on to the public comment, please.
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there's no public comment.
Okay, thanks. Back to the board. Any final thoughts? Ruin, commendations to all. Thanks and commendations to all. Really appreciate it. We look forward to just wonderful work. Wonderful. So let's move on to item C. Rich Shortall, I see you've joined us, please. Fire Safe Marin report.
Great, thank you. So you'll have the report. It's fairly comprehensive, but I'd like to just point out a few highlights. Obviously, the monthly webinars keep going on, very good attendance. The next one should be interesting, environmental considerations for homeowners when creating a fire smart landscape. So we're going to have a chance to hear a preview of the defensible space recommendations that came from ESP. Some issues have been raised about bird surveys and so forth. I think there'll be a great presentation for homeowners on how to take a look for some of the habitat issues in their own backyards. And then Yvette Blount from the Nevada Fire Department is going to speak about how the wildfire mitigation specialists up there incorporate environmental concerns into the home assessments that they do. So I think it's definitely worth turning into. I thank Mark for the shout out on the community workshops. We've done 3 of them now. I'm very happy with them. And just as he said, it's a great opportunity for the local fire officials to talk about the projects that they're doing in their areas. We get good feedback from the public. And honestly, it's a really good advertisement for the work that MWPA is doing. Mark and Bruce have a really nice segment in the middle of it. And we talk constantly about programs that MWPA has funded and how those programs have been worked into the work that's taking place in the local community. So at the end of those, we always get a whole bunch of, wow, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. So if you missed yours, go ahead to our YouTube site and you'll be able to check it out there. They're all posted. A really big project that we recently completed was the training for landscape professionals. This is in partnership with Northern California Landscape Contractors Association. This is a 1-hour training for landscape professionals. And you'd be surprised, most landscape professionals actually don't know very much about how wildfire impacts the work that they're doing. So they're really happy with this. It's being piloted right now. After the pilot, we'll make any changes that need to be done. a final version of it, and then we're also going to translate it into Spanish and then distribute it through NorCal Landscape Contractors. I just left a meeting on the home hardening project that we're doing. As we all know, home hardening is really the big focus that everybody's looking at now, and it is hard to find contractors to do that type of work. We're developing what is essentially going to be a proposal to how to put together programs to develop workforces to do this kind of work. I think it's going to be really exciting. We're almost done. We'll have it finished for you in mid-June. And then skipping ahead, we've been working with Central and Western Marin, who are now training their defensible space inspectors. We've given some presentations there. But what's really exciting, if you haven't heard about it, is the form that they're going to be using to do the assessments of the homes is really spectacular. It's state of the art. It's all digital and so forth. And when the report is complete, homeowners are going to have a tremendous amount of information on exactly what the problems are and how to fix them. And one of the keys to that, for all of the issues that come up, there are links being provided to the Fire Safe Marin website where you can really dive in deep, get all the details you need about how to do things and all. So the homeowners are going to be no mystery for them. And I think this is just a fantastic program. They're about to start the inspections next week, and I'm really excited to see how this takes off. Speaking of the website, if you haven't visited the website before, we've done a lot of reorganization. This is phase 1. It's much easier to navigate. We're starting phase 2 right now, which will give it a new look and feel. We should be done with that probably by the end of June, early July. But this website is very heavily visited, hundreds of thousands of visits a year. And we want this to be state of the art. It has a great, you go on Google and you look up something about fire safety, wildfire safety is probably taking you to our website. It's really heavily visited. And then the last thing is the chipper program started this week. Really happy about that. It's a complicated program to get going, but it's gotten off to a good start. We have very good contractors out there. I'd like to see a little higher level of participation from the public. So we're quadrupling our efforts to get the word out there, but it's going pretty smoothly. It's been a much easier start than last year when we were starting from scratch. So very excited about that. And it's just a great service. With that, I'm glad to respond to any questions.
Rich, phenomenal report. It just feels like all the cylinders are beginning to fire here. And I am so impressed with the work that you're doing and the partnership that we have. Board members, any questions for Rich? So I see Catherine and then David, please.
This is genuine. From my neighborhood, 3 of us want to get together to get involved in a chipper day. So do we have to make an appointment with you? Is that how it works? Or do we do it through our local Southern Marin? How it said it starts June 1st through August. That doesn't give us a specific date. So what do we do?
So the simplest thing to do is you go to chipperday.com /Marin, register your address on there, and it gives you a couple options about when the pickup is. The schedules are all posted. So within your neighborhood, there's 2 dates associated with your neighborhood. So you'll know exactly when they're coming. And just schedule around that. It's very easy. You'll get a confirmation that they're coming and all of that. And if you have an oversized pile or whatever, you can register that too.
Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. And David, and then at Stinson, Mark White, and then Sashi.
And Catherine, by the way, it's very easy to register for the chipper days, just like Rich said. Rich, my question is thinking ahead on the defensible space forms and the visits by the evaluators. I'm wondering about in the future, if we can incorporate into those visits a sense about the homeowner or the resident's ability to pay. Are they going to need financial assistance? Is there any way to scan for that?
So one of the things that's going to be built into the system, and since it's not fully developed on the MWPA end yet, is going to be When you go there, you see what the issues are. Here's the grant and funding opportunities that would be available to you. It'll be like a button you can hit and you can find out what's available.
Great.
We can't make it too generic because all of these will have different criteria, might be a little different in Nevada versus somewhere else. But yeah, that's all going to be part of this.
The other thing that came up is we're reaching out to people here in Bolinas to see how their NOAA radios are working. And some people don't have them programmed right. The alarm hasn't been coming on every Wednesday morning. And is there any way to incorporate into these visits by the evaluators a quick look at their NOAA radio to make sure that it's their weather radio, that it's set up properly? Because I really worry about having a false sense of security about this.
Yeah.
That's my last of my comments and questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. Rich, are you the one to address that, or is that something that should go to Mark?
No, I could take care of that. So
okay, just want to make sure you go with it.
I don't think it's realistic to have the person who's doing the evaluation do that unless they're asked about it. It's very easy to go to the Fire Safe Marin website. There's a ton of information about how to program, how to know if they're working, and all the rest of that. We are in the process of doing a survey for all the people who receive the radios to see how they're working, to identify the types of issues bring up. Obviously, this doesn't reach everybody, but I've got mine sitting right here. If you push the black button and you hear it's wavy out there and there's some wind blowing, you're good to go. It's really that simple. If not, all the programming, there's videos about it on the website. They can call us if they need help. It's probably better that they reach out to us and be more timely.
Okay, thanks, Rich. David, are you good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mark, please, Stinson Beach.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Rich. Just a comment, basically, I just want to thank you on behalf of the citizens around here who were really going for the chipper days big time, and it really is very easy to do. We've been advertising that on the Nextdoor site that I think Bolinas has too, and those are really good places to advertise things. And also, they just want to say thank you. Your great website, Rich, is really appreciated out here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's see. I believe Sashi.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you so much, Rich. I was just looking at the revamped website, and I when you said that, I was thinking I was already impressed with your website, but it looks like you've really pulled together a lot of these videos and things. I think I'm really excited to take a look through, and didn't know about the Chipper Day website, and wondering if there are any constraints. Maybe this is a question for Rich, or maybe it's for Mark, around homeowners associations using the chipper. My homeowner association is 184 townhomes, and we have in the past been told that we couldn't use the chipper program, and I'm not really sure why, because we use the same. It's actually slightly more efficient to be able to get that whole group together. So just curious about what the rules were there.
So a homeowners association, individuals in there can all sign up. I think that was the previous program in Mill Valley there, but on this one, if you live in an HOA, put your address in. If the HOA wanted to do something larger, same thing. They could reach out through that. We can make that happen, but there's no restriction.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sashi. Great questions. Any other board members' questions? Thank you. Thanks. Let's go to the public, please, for any comment.
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there's no public comment.
Thank you. Back to the board for any final thoughts. Rich, I just want to commend you and the phenomenal work, and that now when you're the top hit on Google, that speaks thousands of words. And anyway, thank you so much, and just look forward to our continued partnership and working together. Let's see. Well, let's move on. Thanks all. Let's move on to item 9. Action items: the environmental services, the environmental consulting services contract. Mark, you're going to give us a staff report, please.
I'm excited about this. This is the culmination of much work it started before I came on board as the executive officer. Jane and Megan had already started working with board members to draft the RFP. And as you may remember, we tabled that RFP for a little bit so we can understand what we were really asking for better. And we worked with Remy Moose Manley to help scope the real needs that we had, reached out to other agencies that had requests for proposals similar to what we needed to do. And we issued our own RFP in February. We had 2 excellent respondents between Panorama and Ascent. Quite honestly, I don't think we could have gone wrong with either one of them. And I'll be honest with you, I was a little humbled with the desire both Panorama and Ascent had to be involved in the organization. Maybe I'm putting words in Tanya and Debbie's mouth right now, but it seemed that both firms were motivated because of the type of organization we are, and the type of work and frontier type work. We're first people doing this type of work. I think that created a lot of excitement for them to want to be involved. Ascent had impeccable credentials, as does Panorama. And what really separated Panorama from Ascent was I think Debbie and Tanya have been paying attention to what's important to MWPA and its board. And not just the board, but the members of our public, our stakeholders, our partners. And they put together a package that was in alignment with what the MWPA is about. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Tanya from Panorama and Debbie from Sequoia, one of the partner agencies.
I'm waiting for Tanya to unmute. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Montana. I'm president of Sequoia Ecological Consulting. I am thrilled to be considered for this position to assist MWPA with this very important work. We've been involved in fuels treatment work for the last 6 years with various open space, fire councils, CAL FIRE, and RCDs. You know, this work really hits home. This is, you know, Northern California, it's our backyard. All of the biologists that work at Sequoia, they recreate in these areas. We feel the direct consequences of these wildfires. And yeah, it is personal and we are passionate about it. I do have to say my husband's also a retired fire captain from the city of Santa Clara. So I also love working with fuels crews because they consider us part of their family. You know, that's just the mentality of working with fire crews. So thank you. Now that Tanya's unmuted, I'll let her talk.
Sorry about that. My cursor froze for a second there. I'm Tanya Trice. I'm the principal and owner of Panorama Environmental. And yeah, we're just really excited about the prospects and continuing to work with the MWPA, or building a relationship with the MWPA and all the partner agencies. As Mark had said, you know, we do have a lot of passion for this work and particularly this area. We prepared the Biodiversity, Fire, and Fuels Integrated Plan, also known as the BIFIFIP, for Marin Municipal Water District. And we started that work about 10 years ago and have been continuing to work with them through that whole course of time. We've even been helping them with implementation and talking with them about what's working and what's not working. And I think, you know, earlier on in this meeting, you talked about how important it is to have this, you know, collaboration among all the different entities and agencies, you know, across Marin, but also even across the greater region. And I think that's something that we bring with all the experience that we have. We've also been working with the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and we just got the certification of an EIR, program EIR, that we prepared for their wildfire program last week, and that covered about 60,000 acres. Yeah, so it's really exciting. This is, you know, a great time for us to really, you know, jump in and commit and help you guys out. We're a small women-owned, minority-owned firm. We've got about 25 staff, but a lot of our other wildfire projects are winding down, and it really frees up some folks who've got just great experience, you know, to be available for you. And we're really close. I'm back in San Francisco. I was in St. Louis during the interview for a family matter, but I'm back here in San Francisco. So I look forward to many opportunities to come up and really be deeply engaged in this.
Wonderful. Welcome both. Thank you both for just being present here. And Mark, at this point, do you have anything to you'd like to say before we move on to questions from the board?
I do. I just wanted to take a chance to fill in that last step of the process. And that last step was for both firms to give presentations to the executive committee, for the executive committee to deliberate in order to make a recommendation to the full board. And it's just to show how much interest there is in this. When I look at our YouTube channel, this is the most watched video we have by almost double. I don't know if it's because so many of our board members watched that snippet that I asked you to watch, or if it was some of our partners and stakeholders. But I think if you did have an opportunity to watch the presentation, you saw the thoughtful deliberation that was behind it. And then I know that everyone I've talked to was impressed by both of the written proposals. So it was a unanimous recommendation from the executive committee to the full board to award the contract to Panorama.
Thank you, Mark. So let's go to board members. Questions from the board. Barbara Kohler, please. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to say that Mark had asked me to review the proposals before they went to the executive committee, which I did. So one thing I wanted to add is I thought both firms were very capable, but my thoughts were that Panorama had a broader range of varied experience and might be more nimble in our approach. The other thing I really liked about that was different from Ascent is they had development of an environmental and permitting manual that I think will be very helpful for particularly our member agencies. I don't think any of us wants to necessarily be beholden to always entering into a contract with an environmental consultant for CEQA assistance. So I think ultimately, as we get more experience, that manual will come in very handy for us to make those decisions on our own as we get more comfortable, rather than looking through the Rummy Moose 2 or 3 or 4 legal memos. And so I thought that was really helpful. So I'm glad to say that. One of the questions I have that I raised to Mark before the meeting was a little bit of concern about controlling costs. And I don't see any kind of not to exceed cost in the contract. And Mark explained to me that at this juncture, it was difficult to make that kind of an estimate. I still have concerns over a time and materials contract where costs can continue to build and build. So without that, and I think there's ways to make an educated guess working with Tanya and her team as to what we think we can accomplish in each year. But without that, how are we going to be able to control the expenditures? Because time and materials can add up pretty quickly.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Well articulated. Mark, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, and again, Director Kohler, my apologies. I'm sorry I didn't mention the input that you provided prior to the executive committee, and I was able to share that information with the executive committee, so it was very helpful. And I also appreciate your review before the meeting and allow me to wrap my head around some of your questions specifically about the costs. And I believe the cost containment strategy can actually be internal to the MWPA, and that with any contractor, there'll be very thorough and accurate accounting because, well, they want to get paid. But it also means that we have thorough and accurate accounting on our end. And with each one of those invoices attached to a particular project that we're implementing, and we've estimated 10% scoping and environmental for each of our projects, I believe internally we can start tracking that cost containment. And if we start seeing costs go beyond that 10%, whether it's both core projects where MWPA is working direct with Panorama, or perhaps it's one of the other agencies to decide to exercise the opportunity to work with Panorama, we'll be able to track those costs and provide input to the finance committee and the board of directors with cost containment strategies if we start going too high.
Okay, just one follow-up. Thank you, Mark. Is I know that we're fast and furious, and it's, everybody's working so hard, and thanks to Anne for joining us. I think some type of project tracking software would be very helpful for us, not just our partners, the consultants, to really start tracking each of those elements in the scope of work and where we are and where we are in cost, because as you know, our voters are interested in what we're spending their money on. So I appreciate the thought you put into that, and it looks like Debbie wants to add something.
And before we have Debbie, I'm sorry, Debbie.
No problem.
I did want to
slow down.
I did want to address the project management. That is task number one, developing a project management system for Anne. And it will be implemented into our updated website. There will be a very comprehensive project management public facing portal through there where they will see every one of our projects, whether it's a core project, local mitigation project, or defensible space project.
Okay, excellent. And what I'm just suggesting is to have sort of a sub part of that will specifically track this contract, because there will be so much to it. But thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. At this point, Mark, your response, I think, Barbara, you're hearing a fairly thorough response from Mark. I'd like to go to the directors. Catherine, please.
So Mark, I support what Barbara has said. What amount did you put in the budget for this?
We are building budget costs for environmental compliance into each of the projects, and we're estimating 10% for each of the projects.
Okay.
So there's not technically a line item in our budget for environmental compliance. We have money from the 2021 budget that was earmarked for bringing on board our environmental compliance. But moving forward, we'll have rollover money from 2021 to 21-22, but moving forward, there typically will not be a line item for environmental compliance. It will be baked into each of the proposals.
So if you award $100,000, you take back 10,000 in order to go through this process? Is that
so if an agency is proposing a project and they're estimating $100,000, we will be releasing $10,000 for them to fund the scoping and environmental compliance. And then when they come back for approval for a project, that'll whatever was not, the total project cost will not exceed 100. So if they used all 10,000 for the compliance, then they have 90,000 for the project. If they only used 5,000 for the compliance, then they'll have 95,000 for the project.
Okay, and this firm is the one that's going to do that for every one of the projects?
For our core projects. And if the agencies opt to exercise their ability to piggyback on our contract, then they can use Panorama for their local mitigation projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, I understood that, Debbie, I didn't see your hand, but Mark, it's up to you for further discussion. I think you're being charged with project management and tracking and software. And I'm seeing nodding heads from Debbie and Tanya that yes, of course. So there will be real-time tracking of the environmental compliance costs on a project by project basis. And Mark is suggesting that is his and Anne's job, along with Allison, I'm assuming, or to Alyssa, to give us periodic real-time updates regarding costs of environmental compliance, and to identify any red flags if there are any. Mark?
You summarized it great, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay. So other directors, any questions at this point in time?
Director Kimball has his hand up.
Oh, okay, go Dave.
Thank you. I'm having unstable internet, so if I come in and out, please excuse me. And I didn't know, Did you, Debbie, did you have your hand up earlier? Were you able to address what you wanted to cover before I asked my question?
Oh, I appreciate that. I don't want to interrupt the thought process. I
Okay.
just wanted to point out some of the things that the Panorama team was doing to be very cost conscious. As principal of Sequoia, I'll be heavily involved in making sure the compliance side is carried out thoroughly and efficiently, but I won't be charging principal time for that. Won't be charging my time. This work it's so important. It's not necessarily all about costs and profit. We just want to be a part of it. I just want to be a part of it. And we are also training up more junior staff, even now as we speak, to work on this project, because we don't need a high level, 9 years of experience biologist going out doing nesting bird surveys. So we're really looking at using the right staff and the right qualified staff to do, the appropriate work to save money. So we're looking at all different areas to be cost efficient. And I believe each project is on a task order basis. So every time we submit a scope of work and a cost estimate, that's an opportunity to go, okay, where, for you to come to us and say, where can we cut some costs here? So we're always looking for those opportunities. And I just wanted to say that real quick.
David, anything else? David, you're frozen up there. So let's move on to other board members. Questions? Okay, thanks. Let's move to the public, please. Public comments on this item.
Larry Minikes.
Yeah, I'm going to put on my Marin Conservation League hat for a minute here and speak about Panorama. And some of you may know that Panorama was involved in developing the BIFIP for MMWD, which is the Biodiversity Fire Fuels Integrated Plan in 2019. And we are very involved in that and very happy with the final document. Our concern is really the funding of the plan. There's a great plan. There's not really enough funding for it, but what will really be advantageous here with Panorama when you were going through this process, my thoughts were that they're very well aware of what we're already doing here on the watershed, and that should be really helpful in the planning process here, and perhaps even save some time and funding. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Larry. Any other public member wish to comment?
There is no further public comment.
Okay, let's bring it back to the board and let me check first with David. David, you froze up. Did you have something?
Yeah, yeah, I did. It may already have been answered. And by the way, my dropped off, so I got back in. You may have answered it with the project tracking and so forth. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, you are breaking up, David. So
unstable again.
We'll be patient.
I'm okay. Yeah, my internet is so unstable. I'm not. It's not working at this end.
David, why don't you turn off your video, and sometimes when you have an unstable connection, it'll let you go through. Try that.
Okay, yeah, it looks like this is really not going to work, David. I'm assuming whatever comments you have, Mark, is there any way for him to provide written comment to you in the chat room or?
Not if he's not connected, but I'll follow up with him afterwards.
Okay, David, we'll follow up with you later. So let's bring this back to the board for further discussion and a motion to award the environmental consulting services contract to Panorama Environmental Incorporated. Any further discussion, please?
I'll make that motion to approve the Panorama agreement.
Thank you, Barbara. Second.
I'll second.
Julie McMillan, second. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Allison, please call the roll.
Bolinas Fire District. Okay, we may have lost Bolinas Fire District. Okay, City of Mill Valley.
Are you calling a vote?
Yes.
I just got back in, and my vote is an enthusiastic aye.
Thank you. City of Mill Valley,
Aye.
City of San Rafael,
Aye.
City of Larkspur,
Aye.
County of Marin,
Aye.
Kempfield Fire District,
Aye.
Muir Beach Community Services District,
Aye.
Novato Fire District,
Aye.
Sleepy Hollow Fire District,
Aye.
Southern Marin Fire District,
Aye.
Stinson Beach Fire District,
Aye.
Town of Corte Madera,
Aye.
Town of Fairfax,
Aye.
Town of Ross,
Aye.
Town of San Anselmo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 100% of the vote.
Wonderful. Welcome to the team, Panorama and Sequoia. We cannot wait to work with you. I just want to affirm that, I was part of the executive committee, went through all the interviews, and that it was so close, but there were just some really exceptional qualities that both of you showed and demonstrated. And we are on a road towards success. And we've also had some conversation with members of the environmental community who are thrilled with your presence and the work that you're going to do. So thank you. Without further ado, thank you so much. We're on a roll. Let's move on to item 9B, the legislative support policy. Mark, will you give us a report on this item?
Absolutely. And I won't reread the staff report to you, but just the background is with as much effort throughout the state, throughout local government, throughout the federal government, there is behind the wildfire prevention and wildfire mitigation. There's tremendous amount of legislation going through and policy decisions. And being the type of organization that we are, people are reaching out to us and asking if we will support their legislation or any policy changes. And so we brought this forward to the executive committee. The executive committee tasked us to write a policy. We reached out to Marin Clean Energy for a draft policy, and they had basically these guidelines, these sideboards that if the policy or legislative initiative is within the sideboard, staff can make the recommendation to support that. We wrote the policy mirroring that image. We built in a ability for identifying any conflicts with any of our member agencies, because we would not want the MWPA to support something that a member agency did not wish to support. And also a process that if there were any issues that were outside of those fence boards that were established. And then any approval would require the board president's signature or the vice president's signature in the absence of the president. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Board members, any questions?
Director Kohler has her hand up.
Barbara.
Yes, so one thing that I wasn't clear on is I'm hopeful that taking positions on any legislation would come to the full board rather than just the executive committee. MCE has been in business for 11 years, and I do sit on their executive committee. And there, the executive committee can make those decisions, but that's only more recently. And we just did something that was of concern regarding a bill that Cal Cities opposed. And the executive committee outvoted me and a couple of members who suggested we not take any position, and it was outside the normal purview of MCE. So I think because we're a new agency, these decisions should come to the full board. And the timing, it's not going to happen that often. We don't need to weigh in very early. I also sit on the Mayor's and Council Members Legislative Committee as the vice chair. I think Sashi's on that with me, and another legislative committee. So I don't think we'd have to be doing this very often. And I do think we need to go to the full board rather than delegating that to the executive committee or just the board president. These things can usually wait, and they often change a lot. So any thoughts on that, Mark or Bruce? I just wasn't clear from the staff report where you were going with it.
Yeah, Mark, response?
So it seemed to us that there were quite a few initiatives that are just fully in line with the MWPA and staff, given the guidance from this policy, would be able to make those decisions. For items that are not within those issues or initiatives that would be fully in alignment, we built in going to the executive committee and the option for the executive committee if they felt necessary to go to the full board.
Okay, well, I personally disagree with that. And I think this board is not at a position where people on this board necessarily follow legislation that much to know that the changes that continue to occur. And I think as a young agency, we should bring these things to the full board. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Mark, it suggests, I think, Mark, you're suggesting that there are likely some positions that are absolutely fully in compliance with Measure C, with the JPA, that you're saying that you think that there are that situation may exist, but when there's a question that the executive committee would have the discretion to bring it to the full board. That's what I'm hearing. I guess I'd like to hear other directors' thoughts on this. Questions? Hi, Dennis, please.
Hi, thanks, Bruce. I think the important item here is what the legislative guidelines say, because that's what I would reference before signing a letter, is something that we're responding or writing to within the legislative guidelines that we've been given. And if those have been vetted by the board, which we're doing today, then that should be giving the authority to the president or vice president to actually send a letter on our behalf. If they clearly don't fit in those guidelines, though, then I agree. It's probably something that needs to come back to the executive committee and the whole board. And I think the timing of these issues becomes so crucial sometimes because the state moves very quickly. And the fact that the executive committee and the board don't meet but monthly would pose some difficulties at some time. Now, how crucial is it that MWPA respond to every issue that aligns with us? That probably is important to discuss, but I think there are items that we definitely align with that we want to respond to, which would put us in a good position with our legislators and others that are posing those bills. So I think this policy does reflect what I think would be good governance, and with some oversight by not just staff doing it, but the vice president or president has to sign it. And I know Bruce and I will be looking at it very carefully to make sure it fits into these guidelines that we're approving.
Thank you, Dennis. Thanks very much. Sashi, please.
I appreciate both Barbara and Dennis's comments, and I'm wondering if the intention is that once there has been a statement of support issued, whether it's a letter or just a statement of support that someone could use in their, that a legislator could use in their documentation, whether that would then go back to the board at the next meeting so that it would be daylighted, because then at that point, if it's something that the executive committee, for example, thought was non-controversial, and then a board member were to say, whoa, you guys maybe didn't think this through, and there's something, that at least there would be an opportunity there for that to come back, even if it's on consent. So I'm just wondering if that might be a way to kind of do both these things that they're suggesting. Because I think Dennis is right. There are some times that you need to move quickly when things are towards the end of the cycle, but I think Barbara is also correct.
Thank you, Sashi. Other board members, please. Any other comment? Barbara, back to Barbara.
Just one. So, for example, there are a couple of board bills right now that are actually dead. That we're looking at very high fire threat severity zones, and all that sounds good. But Cal Cities, for example, took an oppose on one for a reason that may not become crystal clear to an agency that's not following it. Once you send a support letter, it's done. So again, there's very little that happens so quickly that we wouldn't be able to bring it to a board meeting. I sit on a few legislative committees. We meet monthly on one, and we typically have time to marshal our efforts. So I would say my recommendation again would be to bring them to the full board, because even though it sounds like it's within what we want to do, there may be aspects that we don't understand, that don't jump across. And I would say that if it is very critical timing, which doesn't happen that often, then I would say for critical timing, give it to the executive committee. Those are my last thoughts.
Thanks. So thank you, Barbara. I think between Dennis's comments, Sashi's comments, Barbara's comments, I do think we really have kind of a workable situation that, and Mark, maybe you can affirm this, but perhaps we could be clear that that which is absolutely time sensitive, that the team of the executive committee must need to act, they would act according to the test that Dennis presented, that there's in essence, is it compatible or not? If it is compatible, act. If it's compatible and not time sensitive, I think there's folks asking us to bring it to the board. Is that, Mark, is that a workable modification to this?
Well,
and we're having discussion now, by the way. We are jumping way ahead, but so excuse me, please, from a procedural perspective. But
and before I speak, I see that Director Kurtz has her hand up, so I figured it would be good to hear from her.
Please.
Sure, thank you. I think all the opinions and thoughts make sense, and I do think there's an opportunity to bring it back to the full board in terms of discussion. Any of these legislative committee conversations can take over all of our time, and I just want to make sure that, in interest of what our mandate and focus is, that we don't look to the legislative work. And so I just want to make sure, as we're thinking about it, if we have a question around who's going to be doing this, are we going to leave an open door for legislators to be coming and using this forum to present information, right? So it could go way sidetracked. Yep. And we don't want to necessarily do that. And I think having the exec committee be that initial review and vetting to understand, and then maybe there are times that it comes back to a full board, but I think we got to be really careful. Otherwise, all of the time could be spent dealing with legislative type of conversations, which I think is really risky.
Thank you, Rachel. Very important comment. My concern also, by the way, that we will get distracted. We have our core business, which is here in Marin, frankly, and we're setting a standard, and there are a lot of people looking at us. And yes, we may be able to influence things, but our first job, number one, is Marin, wildfire prevention, and not to be distracted. So thank you, Rachel. I'd like to take this out to public comment now, please.
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members, and there's no public comment.
Okay, great. Back to the board. Any discussion? And Mark, perhaps you can articulate. I think we're looking at some clarification. The time urgency is critical to move it. Compatibility, move it. Barbara's suggestion that which is not urgent, we bring back to the board. I guess I'm not feeling that there's a consensus on this yet. Rachel's comment about not getting distracting the whole board, frankly, I guess I'd like a little more discussion on this and clarification. Julie, please.
I think there'll be some really obvious, clear cases where it's kind of a no-brainer for us, for the executive committee, to go ahead and authorize the president or the vice president to sign a position. I think people should trust the executive committee and the president and the vice president. And when it's a close case, the executive committee is not going to authorize the president or the vice president to go for it. We don't want to have that responsibility or make that mistake. And I think, given that we are a young agency, we will be conservative in making recommendations. So it's going to be the no-brainer cases where we authorize the green light. And the closer cases, I think we should have confidence that we would bring that to the entire board.
Okay, I think we're coming to a consensus here. Sashi, please.
I don't think it's as much a matter of trusting the executive committee as it is just, that we should be judicious about what we choose to kind of jump in on. And, there are going to be tons and tons of wildfire bills. We don't have to, be, really conscientious about making sure we hit every one of them. I think we kind of are going to go based on whether we get a request from one of our North Bay legislators. And I think we should also look to, groups like Cal Chiefs that are doing a significant amount of vetting in this area. We have some of our member agencies are heavily involved in Cal Chiefs. So I think that, unless it's, I think we should be judicious about what we, about jumping in to support anything. And if we do, we should make sure we have enough information to be able to do that. There was one that, came to us and then it ended up getting pulled earlier that I think if we had looked at it a little bit more deeply, we might have chosen to not take a position on. So just, I think that should be the tone is on occasion when it is appropriate, we will look at something and support it. But I'm okay with the executive committee, doing that pass as long as it's, it's not that every year we're going to, have a whole meeting where we, look at the 25 different bills. It should be just a few, kind of when we're asked by our legislators or by our operations committee people or, or by a member agency. I may be doing that pretty soon on something I'm working on, full disclosure on that you all know about. So I'm okay with that, but I would want to make sure that it was daylighted and that we were able to close the loop on that with the rest of the board.
Thank you, Sashi. Mark?
I see Director Ravazio's hand up.
Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah, I was just going to concur with what Julie said. I think we need to trust the executive committee, and these things can turn into huge amounts of time. On our council, we moved away years ago from endorsing these and discussing them in council meetings and relying on committee members to, address it and do it, because they can turn into big things. And we have so much we are trying to accomplish and so much we are trying to approve. I think we need to put this under the executive committee, and unless there is something that they're concerned about, I would put my trust in them to go forward with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, let me ask you the question. I don't have the policy in front of me, but do you feel that given this discussion that we can focus as the board is advising only on when critical issues come up that were requested to consider for support, and we determine whether it's consistent or not, to do so and really stay away from being distracted. Do you feel that this is currently appropriately written to clarify the comments and concerns of the board?
Well, as written, would for the stipulations that are written in the guideline now, it would be a decision at the staff level if it is in alignment. If it was in alignment, then staff would connect with the board president for the signature of the letter of support. But I feel what I'm hearing, and I'm not 100% sure, what I'm hearing from the deliberations, rather than it being at the staff level, working with the board president, there seems to be more comfort with the executive committee being the entity that would say it fits within these parameters given in the guidelines. Am I hearing the deliberations properly?
That's what I'm hearing. Shaking heads. Yes. Okay. Could we maybe hear a motion of a modified support policy that clarifies, that transfers the determination to the executive committee for determination? Is that what I'm hearing from the board? Megan, please.
Yeah, I think we can do it fairly easily and even deal with the wording here, which is under the letters of support. It would just be that MWPA staff may draft a letter of support for legislation or agency policy to be reviewed by the executive committee. And so it could be that straightforward. So we don't have to come back to you with another draft at some point, but just so that we have some clarity now.
Thank you, Megan. That's an elegant answer to the question. So board, do we have any further discussion? Motion to approve?
That recommendation, I'll use that, make a motion to approve.
Rachel, thank you. Second?
Second.
Bob Ravazio, thank you so much. Motion to approve and second. Allison, please call the roll.
Salinas Fire District, Salinas Fire District,
Believe he's frozen.
Not here. Oh,
Thank
David, you're frozen. Oh,
City of Mill Valley,
Aye.
City of San Rafael,
Aye.
City of Larkspur,
Aye.
County of Marin,
Aye.
Kentfield Fire District,
Aye.
Muir Beach Community Services District,
Aye.
Nevada Fire District,
aye.
Sleepy Hollow Fire District,
Aye.
Southern Marin Fire District,
Aye.
Stinson Beach Fire District,
Aye.
Town of Corte Madera,
Aye.
Town of Fairfax,
No.
Town of Ross,
Aye.
Town of San Anselmo.
Aye.
The motion passes with 96.2%.
Thank you, Allison, and board for all of your input and discussion. I think we've got and Megan for your final suggestion. Let's move on to item C, please, the parcel tax levy inflation adjustment. Mark, please.
Absolutely. And with the consideration of the financial status of many of our residents following the pandemic, the inability for the MWPA to expend all of our funds in our first year, which is also helping us create a fund balance to carry us through the taxing cycle. We felt it was prudent to not increase our tax levy. It was, the CPI was set at 1.7%. And that was $360,000, I believe, that we would lose in revenue. The downside is that you get into a point of that would be compounding by us not issuing it this time. It's less percentage of an increase next time dollar wise, but I just staff felt, executive committee felt that this was the right thing to do for our constituency at this time. The finance committee was supportive of that as well. And one other stipulation is that the resolution discusses that we would not be able to bank CPI that we didn't put on this time in our next year, that we would still only be able to do what the CPI is for the next year. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Board members, any questions? This is a recommendation, and I'm seeing none. Let's go to the public, please, for comment.
Looking for any raised hands from our audience members. And there's, oh, yes, Larry Manikes.
Yeah, I do want to address this for a second because I am concerned about the compounding effect. In the 90s, I was getting in front of the board. I was the lone voice in front of the MMWD board demanding that they continue to raise rates because they were holding them back 7 out of like 10 years. And now they're in a lot of trouble. That's all I want to say there. There's every reason to hold back this year, but I just want you to be aware that the compounding effect is very real. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I think we all are aware of the compounding effect, and this is a one-time decision based on certain current circumstances. So thank you, Larry. Other public, please.
There's no further public comment.
Okay, back to the board for any discussion, please. And I see none, so I'm asking for a motion to approve Resolution 2106.
So moved.
Second.
Wait, and Steve Burdo second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Allison, please.
Salinas Fire District,
Dropped off.
thank you. City of Mill Valley,
Aye.
City of San Rafael,
Aye.
City of Larkspur,
Aye.
County of Marin, County of Marin.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Oh, thank you. Kentfield Fire District,
Aye.
Muir Beach Community Services District,
Aye.
Novato Fire District,
Aye.
Sleepy Hollow Fire District,
Aye.
Southern Marin Fire District,
Aye.
Vincent Beach Fire District,
Aye.
Town of Corte Madera,
Aye.
Town of Fairfax,
I think she's muted.
Town of Fairfax,
Aye.
Town of Ross,
Aye.
Town of San Anselmo.
Aye.
And the motion passes with 99%.
Thanks, Allison. Thank you, board. Perfect. Let's go to item number 10. In addition to the minutes listed on the agenda, does staff have any information items?
I do not. Does Ann?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. No, I don't. I'm just happy to join you all today. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. If I may just reiterate that tomorrow, the Environmental Sound Practices Partnership, the entire team, there are about 100 people that were involved, will be meeting the same time as the operations meeting. Mark's going to cover that. I will cover the ESP meeting and respond to any questions that come for us as to the next steps for ESP. So that's just information. It is a publicly open meeting. Anyone that wants to participate can, I think, contact Mark or go to our website or contact Bell Cole. Fully transparent and publicly, available. So I'm not staff, but I wanted to add that to the list. So great. Let's move on. Board members have any requests for future agenda items, please? I would like to get an update on what's happening with ESP, Mark. And we can start at the executive committee level, but a big project is a year-long project, and a lot of work has gone into it, boiled down to about 20 pages. And so, Mark, if you could just figure out at what point in time, I know it's going to go to the ATC, it's going to go to legal counsel. Ann's going to get it, legal counsel, ATC, and ops. But if you could just give us a continuous update, I think that would be very important.
Will do.
Okay, thanks. Any other items? Okay, wow. So 4:45, 5/20/21, I would like to adjourn and thank everyone for this just wonderful hard work that's being done. All the tracks we're laying down. We're making history here. Let's continue to make a difference. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Have a great
Ann.
day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.